More on what we can expect from Congress this year, we welcome Karin Agness, founder of the Network of Enlightened Women, and also from Madison, Wisconsin, John Nichols. He's the writer for The Nation. He's live for us. Thank you both of you for being here. Before we start, I want you to listen to some of the comments we got earlier of what people thought of the economy. Take a listen.
The economy hasn't bounced back the way it always has if you leave aside the Great Depression of the 30s. And the numbers, while technically above recession levels, aren't rising. Things are stagnant, I think is a good way to put it.
I see it getting better. I just graduated from college last year, 4 years ago. Finding a job was scary, but right now I was able to get the job. So, I think it's really who you ask.
Karin, let me start with you. A lot of people are they're optimistic, but at the same time concerned, and I don't know how that translates into what Congress does or doesn't do. But what we do know is that people are disappointed with what Congress did last year. Will it have an impact for this year, you think?
Yeah, I think it will, but I think the big story in 2014 is going to be the midterm elections. The Republicans could pick up 6 seats, and then they could have the Senate, and that could really change the dynamics in Washington. So anybody that wants to talk about what Congress is going to do or not do, that backdrop of that story of the Senate elections, you can't underestimate how important that is.
John, is that true? Is immigration and this extension of jobless benefits and all the things that we try to talk about here sort of inside the Beltway, does it all go out the door because of politics?
Things that I predicted would eventually happen to cars?
Yeah, I think that the reality is that this Congress is entirely focused on the 2014 elections, and they will attempt to seem functional, especially in some of the early stages, but it will always be an effort to get an upper hand. You saw it even today in the wrangling over the extension of unemployment benefits. This is something that historically would have been a very popular bipartisan initiative, would have had broad support across the political spectrum, and yet it didn't happen in the Senate, at least so far, and there's really been a pushing and pulling back and forth. It's an ugly scene. The American people are overwhelmingly disappointed in it. The challenge is whether one party can get an upper hand. And I think it is true that those Senate races are going to be the key. The House is brutally gerrymandered, and so most of the races are non-competitive. But the Senate races, because they go on a statewide basis, still are competitive, and they really could go either way. So the
John, maybe it's the optimist in me. Maybe these 6 key Senate races, maybe they could come to an agreement, could they not, on something that both parties seemingly agree on, which is immigration, could it not?
No, I doubt that very much. I'm not saying that some sort of immigration deal can't be reached. It might come into play, but I don't think that it is likely that you're going to see a natural bipartisan agreement. What you could see is the Republicans, who've been very resistant to immigration, decide that it is a necessary step politically for them. But even there are deep, deep divisions within the Republican Party on that issue. And this is something to understand about both parties in the U.S. They both are divided parties. The Democrats have a left wing and a centrist wing. The Republicans have an extreme right wing and then a relative right wing. And they wrangle with each other. They fight with each other. That makes compromise very hard because actual moderates or folks who might want to negotiate find themselves threatened by their left or their right flank.
All right. But we do have one bit of compromise at the end of last year. Senator Patty Murray from the great state of Washington and Congressman Paul Ryan, they came to this little mini budget deal. What was left out was the extension of unemployment benefits. Now, the president says that he wants to add that back, and we're hearing from different congressional folks that that could be added back. Could there be a compromise where we look at the debt ceiling and we look at the fact that most people agree that they could add back the unemployment benefits? The question is how they're going to pay for it.
That is the key question, is how they're going to pay for it. And there are actually some Republicans who have come out and said that they would support its extending unemployment insurance, but they would only do so if we'd also pass some job-creating measures. So I think the question is, are the Democrats going to be willing to pass some job-creating measures as well?
Now, he talks about the fissures in both parties. I'm going to focus on the Republican Party for a moment because a lot of people do blame them for getting into this budget stoppage at the end of last year. But this compromise between the Democrats and Republicans at the end of last year, does it give us some hope that there could be compromise going into next year, or going into this year, I should say.
Yeah, we do see some cooperation with that budget, and there are people in both parties that liked some things in it and didn't like some things in it. So there was some compromise. But the key thing is that a lot of people don't want to compromise on these issues because it really represents a fundamental divide between the parties. Do we want to support policies that spend and spend and spend and aren't paid for, or do we want to have a limited government?
John, let me ask you this. John Boehner faced a very difficult year as Speaker of the House. He fought very hard with the Tea Party folks, and at the end, I don't know if he got a victory or not, but I'm wondering, what do you make out of John Boehner and his leadership for this year?
John Boehner is in a tough position. He's never really led his caucus. He tends to be led by the caucus. When Paul Ryan aligned with him at the end of last year, they were able to get a sufficient number of votes for a variety of political reasons in favor of the budget agreement. But it would be silly to imagine that John Boehner is really in a particularly stronger position at this point. The Republicans will not depose him because they are so divided internally that they can't settle on someone else. But for Boehner, it's going to be another year of what it was last year, basically trying to keep the various sides of his caucus from fighting with one another so much that they can be a relative united front going into the election.
Karin, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, one issue I think we can see unity on within the Republican Party is Obamacare and the massive failure that it has been. So I can see the Republicans really coming together to try to deal with the problems we have with all this Obamacare implementation.
We spent 5 minutes not bringing that word up, by the way, just for the record. Very quickly,
and American
John,
people
Karin, I only
would
have
like
a minute
not to
left.
have it
I just
brought
want to
up,
quickly
yeah.
bring up the minimum wage deal. It's controversial. Quickly, just a one sentence. How do you feel about raising the minimum wage nationwide?
Oh,
Karin?
this is another example of big government policies. They're trying to help the poor by raising the minimum wage when really we should be focused on creating a vibrant economy that will allow businesses to create jobs and opportunity.
John, last word?
Polling shows 80% of Americans, including the vast majority of Republicans, favor raising the minimum wage. Opposition to it by the Republicans in Congress is one of the best things that can happen for the Democrats.
We love and we hate polls.
Democrats want it.
John, Karin, thank you very much. Both of you. We will continue this conversation, of course, this year.